If you study frontline accounts long enough, you start to notice something. The men who endured bitter cold during the Second World War didn't just survive because they were tough. They survived because they learned to work with whatever they had, wherever they were. Heating wasn't a luxury. It was a daily battle against freezing winds, damp uniforms, and nights where temperatures dropped low enough to kill. What surprises most people is that some of the heating tricks those soldiers relied on still work indoors today. Not as reenactment novelties, but as genuinely practical techniques that still solve real problems for anyone who understands them. That's what we're diving into. These methods weren't theoretical, they weren't romantic, and they weren't optional. They worked because they had to. And if you're watching from the legacy of survival community, you already understand why that matters. Good techniques never die. They simply wait to be rediscovered. So let's step directly into the material. No fantasy, no dramatics. Just 4 frontline heating methods soldiers depended on, why they worked, and how you can use the same principles in a modern home without stepping outside the realm of safety and practicality. The first WWII heating method that still works indoors today is using layered heat traps instead of relying on a single heat source. Frontline soldiers quickly learned that it was pointless to rely only on a stove, a fire, or a small heater. Too much heat escaped too fast. Units in the Ardennes, in Karelia, and in the Apennines compensated by creating heat pockets using whatever fabrics and surfaces were available. The trick wasn't the heat source, it was slowing the loss of heat. The method survives in modern, cold-weather protocol. Heat the person, trap the heat, and minimize flow. Indoors, you can apply the same principle by focusing on microenvironments instead of the whole room. Place a small heat source, such as a safe electric heater, near a thick curtain, heavy furniture, or even a moved chair and blanket corner, so that the heat saturates a confined area rather than being lost in open air. If you've ever wondered why a room feels warmer when you lower blinds or pull curtains, this is exactly the same principle soldiers used with tent flaps, ponchos, and spare coats. Soldiers didn't try to heat a forest, they heated a pocket. Indoors, you create a pocket by reducing air volume and adding layers around the zone where you sit or sleep. It's simple, reliable, and used by militaries and polar teams to this day. The Second World War II heating method still useful today is exploiting passive heat from bodies, surfaces, and retained warmth. In winter campaigns, soldiers used everything from warm stones to heated canteens to bricks pulled from destroyed buildings. They'd heat them once, wrap them in cloth, and use them as radiant heat for hours. This is not primitive, it's physics. Thermal mass stores warmth far longer than air does. Indoors, the modern version is straightforward. You can heat a sealed water bottle with warm, not boiling water, wrap it in a towel, and place it under a blanket at your feet or lower back. The effect is identical to what soldiers depended on in unheated bunkers. You can also apply the concept by warming dense materials during normal home routines. For example, after baking or boiling water, leave warm cookware or ceramic dishes on a thick surface to release gradual heat instead of cooling instantly in the sink. That long, slow release stabilizes room temperature more effectively than a burst from a heater. World War II troops didn't care about aesthetics, they cared about effectiveness. A warm object inside a sleeping layer kept fingers and toes alive during nights where temperatures were well below freezing, and the same physics provides targeted comfort indoors without extra electricity. The Third World War II heating method, worth carrying into the present, is moisture management as a heat-saving strategy. One thing often missed in civilian discussions is how much heat loss comes from dampness. Soldiers learned the hard way that even slightly damp clothing pulled heat from the body relentlessly. Units in the Eastern Front and northern Italy often built tiny drying rigs using mess tins, helmet stands or sticks placed near heat sources. Indoors, the same idea applies, but with much better tools. If you want to stay warm in a cold home, the first step is ensuring your base layers and socks are bone dry. Even a few % of moisture creates conductive heat loss. One practical indoor adaptation is rotating socks and shirts near a safe warm appliance, such as a radiator or heated towel rail. Another example is using airflow rather than high heat. Fans on low settings can circulate dry air across clothing, which is something soldiers copied from battlefield stoves. If you've ever felt instantly warmer after changing into dry clothes, even when the room temperature didn't change, that's the principle in action. Managing moisture is heat management, and World War II soldiers knew this better than most. The fourth reliable World War II heating method that works indoors is strategic use of reflective or redirecting surfaces. Frontline troops often lined the inner walls of makeshift shelters with whatever reflective material they could salvage, ranging from ration tins to foil-lined wrappers or polished mess gear. They weren't trying to create campfire theatrics. They were bouncing radiant heat back toward themselves. Indoors, this principle is incredibly easy to apply. A simple example is placing a reflective panel behind an electric heater to send more warmth into the room rather than losing it into the wall. People also use reflective emergency blankets behind curtains to block heat loss at night. It's the same basic tactic used by World War II soldiers who tried to keep heat inside snow pits or semi-collapsed stone huts. Even small reflective surfaces help concentrate warmth toward where you sit or sleep. The key is direction. Heat moves, and reflective surfaces shape that movement. Soldiers understood that even a few degrees of retained warmth could decide whether a man woke up shivering or functioning. Indoors, redirecting radiant heat makes limited energy far more efficient. These four methods aren't gimmicks. They're practical, historical, and grounded in physics and frontline necessity. They worked for men who had almost nothing, and they still work for anyone willing to understand the underlying principles. If you value learning from the past and applying it intelligently to the present, then Legacy of Survival is where you belong. Subscribe. Share this guide with someone who appreciates real historical technique, and help this knowledge stay alive for the people who know its value.